Coming up on One Detroit, we're at the beautiful Detroit Institute of Arts. And this week, we're taking a closer look at the electric vehicle company that Amazon is investing $700 million in, and it's headquartered here in Michigan. Plus,
they said if they see me dancing, they know the food's going to taste good.
The story behind a new restaurant on the city's east side and the power of a neighborhood group that helped make it happen. And a father-daughter conversation about opportunity and challenges in life and the lessons learned. Wayne County Prosecutor Kym Worthy and her father Clifford talk about his new book. I'm Christy McDonald. Join me. One Detroit is just ahead.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Support also provided by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and the Bill and Shirlee Fox Fund for Leadership and Public Affairs Programming at Detroit Public TV.
You know, Salvador, it must never get tiring to see young faces come through and the way that they see the art in different ways.
We love to serve the schools here in Detroit and in the region, and we receive every year over 74,000 students to the museum. It really is an amazing experience for them and for us.
Tell me about the pop art exhibit and why so many people gravitate towards it.
I think the pop art exhibit is very accessible because many of the images that one can see are something that they have seen in the internet or they see in the TV or in the textbooks, and they are just popular culture, and we are very interested in sharing popular culture and having the kids understand the importance of it and how this popular culture is actually something that can be shown in museums and is high art. The way we show the art in the museum is a way that relates to the individual. We really want our visitors that they create connections with the works of art and also with the friends, the people that came with them. So the stories that we tell and the way that we tell them are always very approachable and familiar to them. So Detroiters need to feel very proud about the museum, the collection that we have, and this amazing asset that very few cities in the United States have.
Hi, I'm Christy McDonald. It is always great to walk around the DIA for inspiration. Welcome to One Detroit. Here's a look at what we have for you on this week's show. We're going to give you a closer look at what Rivian is doing and why Amazon's investment in this Michigan company changes the electric vehicle race. Plus, it was just named one of the 10 best new restaurants of the year by the Detroit Free Press. But you'll hear the backstory of how Norma G's came to be. And a new book from Clifford Worthy, the father of Wayne County Prosecutor Kym Worthy. It's a look at opportunity, challenge, and growth. Stephen Henderson has that interview for us just ahead. Well, that is all coming up on the show. But we're going to start with a big investment for Rivian. The company is headquartered in Plymouth and is making electric SUVs and pickup trucks. Amazon recently announced a $700 million investment in the company. It's reportedly interested in Rivian's EV platform for Amazon's logistics needs. Maybe a fleet of electric vans to make those deliveries? Well, this money makes Rivian a bigger player, like Tesla, and there are still reports or rumors that General Motors would like to join forces. There's nothing concrete yet, but Daily Detroit's Sven Gustafson gives us an inside look at this company that has been innovating and creating for almost 10 years.
Rivian has fashioned its headquarters from a former cash register factory operated by the Burroughs Corporation, one of Detroit's big companies from yesteryear. Here in Plymouth, about 350 employees work on zero-emissions electric vehicles. Rivian kept a low profile since launching nearly a decade ago in Florida. Now their founder and CEO, R.J. Scaringe, has something to show for it. Near-production versions of an electric pickup truck and an SUV.
It's an incredibly difficult venture. I mean, the odds are stacked against anybody.
Yeah, it is not an easy process. It takes a tremendous amount of determination and focus to put it all together because there's so many pieces. It's not a simple business.
The R1T pickup and R1S SUV made a big splash when they debuted at the Los Angeles Auto Show, but you won't see them here in Detroit. Scaringe says that's because they're deploying resources carefully, and there are a lot more electric vehicle buyers in California than in the Midwest. Rivian is taking pre-orders, but deliveries won't start until at least the fall of 2020.
We spent a lot of time putting all those pieces together before we showed anything. We wanted to make sure that we weren't just showing an idea or showing a sketch or showing a rendering, that we were actually showing a proper vehicle, fully engineered, and had all the pieces together to deliver that.
Some of the specs on these cars are incredible. 400 miles in driving range, 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3 seconds, 800 horsepower. I feel like somewhere Elon Musk had to, his jaw must have dropped when he heard about this. Where'd you guys come up with all this technology?
Well, to give customers a reason to pick a new type of vehicle from a new brand, we need to make something that's demonstrably better.
We want to make sure that this can do everything that your truck would do. We can tow the 10,000 pounds, we can pull your trailer, we can go up a 100% grade hill, because we want you to get out and have an adventure and go see the world.
Brian Gase came over from Ford almost 9 years ago.
The coolest feature in my mind is our gear tunnel. And the reason I think our gear tunnel is the coolest feature is nothing like it exists on a vehicle today. At the time, we didn't necessarily know what we were going to make. We didn't know where we were going, but we, as a team, believed we could do anything. I couldn't imagine being at any other company at this point.
Rivian is marketing itself as an adventure brand for outdoors lovers. Both vehicles are built for off-roading, with nifty storage solutions and other features.
Little details all the way down to our indoor flashlight, powered by the same batteries that power the vehicle. So
that is so cool. Some of the things I'm seeing look like something out of Patagonia or something. Mm-hmm. How did you come to this, to come to that brand?
While I'm a car guy in a sense, I'm not a traditional car guy. I'm actually an outdoor enthusiast first. I grew up skateboarding, snowboarding, mountain biking. I'm a Michigan surfer, which is a weird thing in itself. It's a little outside of the tradition here in Michigan right now, but we have a strong legacy of outdoor enthusiasm and outdoor activity here. So I think it is just naturally at home as well. So.
Rivian faces steep odds to succeed in a competitive auto industry. They have to build brand recognition and deliver a vehicle that lives up to the hype. It's going to cost billions. Rivian says it has solid financial backing from its private investors and should start production later this year at a former Mitsubishi plant in Illinois. It's clear from employees that the startup doesn't lack for passion or confidence.
We're super excited to be here, but as a lifelong car enthusiast, we also wanted to build something that we were excited about and really were proud of.
If you follow the Free Press restaurant reviews, you might have seen that Norma G's Caribbean Cuisine in Detroit is one of the top 10 best new restaurants from the paper this year. We first told you about Norma G's a few months ago. It's the first new sit-down restaurant in the Jefferson-Chalmers neighborhood in 30 years. And it's not just the story of a new place to eat in the city. What caught our attention is how Norma G's came to be. It took a man with a food truck and a neighborhood development organization with the space and a lot of clout to help pull in philanthropy, city investment, and serious capital to start just one business. It's the beginning of dinner service at Norma G's in the Jefferson-Chalmers neighborhood on Detroit's east side. Bright colors on the walls, the subtle smell of spice, and music. You realize you've come to one of the only places serving Caribbean cuisine in the city. And owner Lester Govaya makes sure his dishes are done just as his mother, the original Norma G, would have fixed them.
She just did things very basic, but it was good. It just worked. And, she cooked that way. She just cooked with love. And my rule is when I go in there, they make a joke of me when they said if they see me dancing, they know the food's gonna taste good. So it's just the love coming out. Hiya, folks. Already. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming. Thanks a million already.
Norma G's is Lester's dream. From catering to running a popular food truck to finally this space that's making history on the East Side. It's the first sit-down dining restaurant in Jefferson-Chalmers in 30 years.
What I'm getting from the people locally is we're glad you're here. It's nice to have something in the neighborhood. They know it's helping to change the neighborhood.
Lester's story isn't a simple one about opening a restaurant, which is hard enough. It's really about how it all happened. He had a lot of help, intentional investment from the neighborhood economic engine guiding the next steps of this area of the city, Jefferson East Incorporated.
Everybody says it takes a village. I think I ended up with the village people because there's been so many people involved in this.
We're here today with a restaurant that's now employing dozens of people, all from the neighborhood.
Norma G's opening in September was a celebration of a new business and the 5-year process where people at Jefferson East helped guide this $1.1 million project, from the community-led ideas to the physical building to foundation support to city investment.
And we create incentives where we would match a great entrepreneur like Lester with space in a growing neighborhood.
Everything that we've done has been really informed by what the community wanted to see.
Derek Scott is the CEO of the East Jefferson Development Corporation, the arm of the organization working on deals to bring more housing and retail to the 5 neighborhoods that Jefferson East represents. He says the group is working to be deliberate in helping in the type of businesses opening up in the neighborhood.
If you're going to do business with us, or if you're going to be a retailer, if you're going to benefit from a lot of the resources that we have, we just ask you to sign on to a few simple things.
Like making sure those businesses hire locals in the building process, have realistic price points, and serve the community's needs.
So like here at Norma G's, Lester has 15 employees, 14 of which that can walk here to work every day. So that's huge.
Lester worked with Jefferson East to align his business plans and lease the space at a reduced rate. But help to open Norma G's went even further.
Organizations that I work with, like Tech Town, my mentors, you know, coming out of Green Garage and Food Lab and knowing those people, and then the DGC, Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, Motor City Match. I mean, I've got some folks there that were just championing me constantly. So being able to go to them and saying, guys, I'm stuck, or can you help me with this, or, you know, whatever. Having the resources really made a difference.
But not every neighborhood has a powerful organization to gather this type of investment and help navigate the city processes. Derek says they can share what they've learned with other grassroots organizations. When you look at the amount of dollars that are available, the amount of investment projects that are available, it's almost kind of like what neighborhoods are going to be able to be the ones to get them and to capture them and to be able to make them work for their neighborhoods and not just be placed there. It's got to be very difficult if you're living in other pockets of the city and saying, gosh, when is that going to come to my neighborhood or to my street?
And I think we're cognizant of that as well, that we're in a very privileged kind of position that we take with humility and say, you know, we've got an opportunity to do something that not every neighborhood has access to. And so how do we manage that project so that it builds trust even within, you know, the funding organizations within the city, to be able to trust in other organizations to do the same thing and carry the other model. So I think as we see successes, we're trying to figure out ways to share some of our best practices with some of those other organizations and other neighborhoods.
As for Lester, he knows Norma G's isn't the typical restaurant opening story. He has a lot of people rooting for him, and they're expecting a lot too.
It's fun. You got to, you know what? Life would be boring if you didn't have something to push you. And this is, I like the challenges here. I hope I can survive it. But right now it's been, you know, I get up and I have a purpose. And I feel good about that. It's not going to a job. I'm really going to just, it's an experience for me. And if I can give that experience not only to the customer, but my staff, I think that's the key part. We have a lot of conversations, we talk about things.
Jefferson East has several more projects in the works. They're working on 2 buildings with 23 residential units, also a new headquarters at the old Kresge 5 and Dime location, and that'll have a restaurant in it as well. So let's bring in Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of WDET Radio. Guys, it's good to see you. When you see a story like that and you see just one restaurant, but what it took to be able to get that in that deliberate place, you do wonder how many other areas of the city can that happen in, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge we have, is that we don't have the market conditions yet to be able to open a business in a neighborhood and not have this extraordinary lift from the city, from the development corporations, and all these other things. And there are a lot of parts of the city that don't have CDCs. There are parts of the city, vast parts of the city, that don't even have block clubs or community associations. And so you do have to start to wonder, can we ever get to the point where this is sort of ubiquitous in Detroit? And this is not that, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the restaurant owner. It's not a big deal to open a restaurant on Jefferson Avenue, one of the most trafficked streets in the entire city. That should be a no-brainer. But the fact that it's not, the fact that it takes us so much to get that going, it's a reminder of how much work is still ahead of us.
But to be able to have some of these processes in place, and I think really the deliberate investment was what caught me in saying, okay, if you're going to come in, we want you to have a few of these things that you're benefiting the community, and it's something that the community wants and will support, Nolan.
Yeah, and I noticed that he had a liquor license, and those are very hard and expensive to get. If we were to make, if the state were to make liquor licenses cheaper and easier to get, you would have more restaurants popping up, more people taking risks on restaurants in neighborhoods, and restaurants are often the leading edge business, the first businesses to reestablish in a neighborhood. I think we shouldn't be so stingy with them, nor should we set the threshold, cost threshold.
And he did say that that was a process to go through.
In other cities, you're right, restaurants, they need low overhead, and so a lot of times when an area gets gentrified, like redeveloped, a restaurant will move, open in a place that's near it because the rents are lower, and that helps move that neighborhood up at the same time. We're not seeing that yet in Detroit because, again, the challenges are still really hard.
You did in Corktown. I mean, Corktown, the first businesses that really established there were restaurants, and they started bringing in people, and next thing you know, now you go to Corktown and
but that's been 20 years in the making.
It's a long process.
Well, I think I should go out on more of these assignments because the food is really, really good.
Did you bring some carry-out?
I did take a little carry-out home.
One of those plantains.
I actually just sat at the bar and ate. It was really good. So thanks to Lester and to Norma G. And finally, meet Colonel Clifford Worthy. You might recognize the last name. His daughter is Wayne County Prosecutor Kym Worthy. Well, Clifford's life journey as a West Point grad and soldier at a time of segregation and struggle is a fascinating one. And he's just published an autobiography called Black Knight, an African-American family's journey from West Point, a life of duty, honor, and country. Stephen Henderson met up with Clifford and Kym Worthy for a conversation.
Talk about how important that was, that the decision to go to West Point and the ability to get in, which wasn't always available to African Americans.
That was just, it was almost like the get the opportunity to go that was thrust on me. Before that time, I had no plans about West Point. I didn't even know anything about the Army. I have no military background, and family military background. But I met a young man at Old Main, that was before it became Wayne State, it was called Wayne, just Wayne University, who came and still had his uniform on.
Cliff Worthy wanted to go to medical school until that young man told him about West Point. But in 1946, African Americans couldn't go there, not until President Harry Truman desegregated the armed forces a couple years later. Congressman John Dingell Sr. offered Cliff continued support.
He wouldn't let go until 3 years, for 3 years, until he got me in. And on July 1st of 1949, I entered West Point. And you knew right from the beginning that I belonged to West Point.
That was almost 70 years ago.
Yeah. Well, here's one right here that shows a picture of me as a senior cadet.
That's as a senior. Wow, it's amazing how young you look there, right?
I didn't have any feeling of being oppressed in any way at that time, because it's just a madhouse when you go there. Upperclassmen are yelling at you, and you got to get your clothing. You got 1,000 things you got to do. So I went through that process, and I can honestly say, for 4 years that I was there, I never really felt that I was being discriminated against, except in one area, and that was housing. When you got there, they put you in companies based on height primarily. And so they wanted to keep the parade purposes, they wanted to look good by all the cadets being the same height. Well, except for the black cadets. They were all we were forced to live together, even though one of my classmates was about 4 inches shorter than myself and the other one. And so as a result, he had to make certain adjustments to his walk, the way he walked, the long stride. He was put into the middle of the formation to hide him. And but other than that, I felt felt that discriminated against.
Again, this theme that comes up again and again in the book and throughout your life of this, dealing with challenge, dealing with the kind of unexpected.
Well, Vietnam was full of the unexpected things that you read about all the time, about the fact that you're fighting an enemy that you can't see, don't know because they look like regular civilians. The isolation of being, I was not artillery, but field artillery battalion commander, which consisted of 3 firing batteries, and those are the war part of that battalion. And they would be spread all over the northern part of South Vietnam, and so you had to maintain contact with them, and they would be miles apart, and they had to operate almost autonomously at times because of the time and distance factors. And so that was a real challenge with it. And the challenge of the kind of fight you were fighting.
For Kim, having a father in the military meant a different kind of challenge, being constantly on the move.
When you're growing up, you don't really know that it's not normal. I mean, you feel it's not normal for you to move every year, and you have to get to know a whole new set of classmates, a whole new school, set of teachers, everything. You really don't get the chance to participate in different things because you know you're going to be leaving the next year. But for me, it was normal. But I think it did, though. I think it made me able later on, as I was approaching adulthood, be able to adapt to different situations pretty easily and readily.
So you talk a lot in the book about the challenges of raising children. What are the things that stand out for you in terms of what those challenges taught you?
Well, of course, with Mark, my son, that was a big challenge. He was diagnosed as a special needs youngster. Back in those days, and even today, resources are very thin about what to help kids like that and families like that. Because some of the resources that we dealt with, it was a family affair. They wanted to make sure that the families were all involved. In fact, the kids had to go to the sessions along with the parents. Kim was always had a mind of her own.
Isn't everybody supposed to?
He has a bit higher degree than most. I remember when she was 15, and she wanted to take driver's ed so she could drive.
I thought this was about you.
Well, he asked you questions too.
I didn't read a book. Go ahead.
Anyway, she wanted to get driver's ed. Well, when you were 16, you didn't have to pay for it, but when you were 15, you had to pay for it. Plus, I didn't really want her driving at 15 anyway. So I said, no, put my foot down. No, I'm not going to allow it. In Kim's mind, I'm sure it was said, fine, I'll take care of it. So the very next day, she had a job at McDonald's, and she paid for it. So that's typical of...
I came home with a driver's license.
What's the message that you think resonates about this story in 2019?
Kids want to succeed no matter what their background, race, whatever. It's just that accessibility, and one of the points I wanted to make in the book is that you never know when you're going to have an opportunity to do something. Seize it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, and make the most of it, realizing it's not going to be perfect, realizing that some of the people you're going to deal with are not good people. But then there are some good people, because I can think of many examples, and they're all featured in the book. About how people have helped me along the way.
And it gets back to what you were talking about character.
Yeah. Really, if you don't have any character, it's going to be very difficult for you in this life, or it will lead you down the wrong path. And I think that's what comes from some of the strong institutions of today, whether it's a military institution or another institution. If they can instill dignity and character and kindness and compassion, if you can instill all that into your children in generation to generation, we really will be better at some point.
Well, that is going to do it for One Detroit. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks to the DIA for having us here. We'll be back next Thursday, and until then, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're there. Plus, check out DetroitPBS.org for all of the reporting projects that we are working on. I'm Christy McDonald. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Support also provided by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and the Bill and Shirlee Fox Fund for Leadership and Public Affairs Programming at Detroit Public TV.